What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. We're dwindling down to the last few, weeks of the season. We usually end around October, November. So we're dwindling down. But today we have a really good guest with us, Kaytlinne Serna from Gray Moon over in Jal, New Mexico. You guys are way over there. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, and I had you guys on last year. Your husband was on last year as well, but this time it's just you. But I had you guys on last year, and we're getting an update this year, so it's great to see that you guys are still running and gunning and doing your thing down there in Jal. If you guys don't know where Jal, New Mexico is, it's pretty much the tippy corner of the state in the southeast area, really close to Texas. And so it's one of those little areas that a lot of the customer base does come from Texas, and it was smart. But I won't let myself tell you guys everything. Go ahead, if you could, introduce yourself to the people that are probably new to the show or haven't checked out that episode.
Yeah, so I'm Kaytlinne. I'm, like Pat said, I'm down from Jal, New Mexico. I grew up in the Lee County area, and we're basically where all of the oil produced in New Mexico comes from. So I kind of figured the economic potential that would be around here, and I'm from here. And I thought it would be a really great place to start. So we have our dispensary on one of the local highways here through town. And we have a manufacturing facility about 2 blocks away from the dispensary. And then I want to say a couple blocks from the dispensary in the opposite direction. We are in construction for our grow. We did talk about that last time. Unfortunately, we ran into a ton of issues with weather, construction, contractors just not showing up, just like everyone else dealing with the same thing all over the state. So just the same old thing. We're getting pretty close though, so we should finally have everything greenlit by towards the end of this year. We've been going since 2021, and then we got open in 2023. So we're really happy to be, here still in 2025, and we're excited to keep growing.
Nice, and thank you for that intro and everything in the update. Because I was going to ask you about that grow, because I was really curious and everything, and I know how the bureaucratic system can be, and all that, and how much of a pain in the ass it can be, and little things that they need here and there, and you're just like, you got to be kidding me! It's going to cost me another $1,000, et cetera, whatever it may be. But I'm glad you guys are still doing your thing. You're still pretty busy. I checked the sales numbers. I'm like, oh, they're still doing really good. I saw that there's a little bit more competition in the city now, or is that kind of not as accurate?
So really weird, like how things change like night and day. Yeah, a ton of competition, and then I want to say I woke up like a month ago and a dispensary had closed their doors, and then another dispensary had some licensing issues, so they may come back. Another was slightly closed for construction, remodeling. So right now, I'm not exactly sure what our total is anymore. I think we might have 3 or 4. We did have 5 a month ago. So I don't know what's going to happen with the changes, but it's still really, really good down here. I still see potential competition coming down. I'm not sure if it's gonna happen. We've had people pop in, get their licensing, and then just never open. So I'm not sure if people sell out, or if they're just being patient and holding onto the properties, or if they just, ended up not doing it because of locations. But Jal's pretty weird. Especially right now, it seems like it's in like a transition phase.
And the whole, what you're seeing is on a micro scale, what's happening industry wide throughout the whole state. It's like every city you go to is kind of dealing with it, but it's such a small town that you're seeing everything happen, at such a microscope level. But yeah, that's kind of the case throughout the whole state. What you're seeing in Jaws, I guess no exception, because even here in Cruces, we're seeing, one place shut down, that someone else take it over, and then you have hearing of this person doing it, and they didn't open up because of this, and all this other stuff going on too, and on a smaller town scale, I'm sure that's even. All the rumors are flying anyway, as it is. But for those who may not be familiar with Jal as is, could you give us an idea of, the town makeup? What kind of town is Jal?
Jal is a super small, safe, very, very, very great town. I would say that, like, if you're from Albuquerque, it's going to definitely not be your cup of tea if you enjoy Albuquerque, because like you said, the rumor mill, it's so small. We have maybe 2,500 actual residents. And then because of the oil field industry, we probably have about 2,000 residents that are kind of transient, where they're living in the RV parks or they're here during the week and then they go home. So we're not the biggest place, but it's definitely very busy. If you're ever in jail, you're just going to be bombarded with trucks. And if you're impatient and you think you're going to get like a small town cruise real quick in and out, you're going to be really surprised whenever you're stuck at the 4-way highway forever, because we're just so backed up with 18-wheelers trying to get in and out, because we're like the center hub of all of the oil field activity. So it's just very, very busy. But in general, it's a really safe town. It's a good place to raise a family. And it's really easy to stay connected, do community service work, get involved. And for what I like, to mind your own business and, just go ride a bike. It's very safe.
Nice, and thank you for that explanation, because when I try to explain it to people, I do a terrible job, because I've actually never been there. I'm like, it's a small town in southeastern New Mexico. It's about all I know.
It's really awesome.
Yeah, and one day I hope to check that area out. There's a couple other areas in that part of the state that I want to check out the market and everything and how they're doing, and just kind of check out the shops over there, because Eastern New Mexico is a very interesting market, just in general, by that border, all the towns that border it. It's really cool to check it out, because I mean, even Clovis is different from like Hobbs when it comes to like, what they need, what they go through and everything like that. And I found that out when we did the town halls, that, like you go to like those two cities, it's like, oh wow, like one city has issue with the local government and the other one doesn't, but they're still close to the, the border of Texas. And so, it's great to get an idea of, what these places are, what they're about, and, the local struggles that you guys deal with, because that is interesting to know that you're going to get stuck if you try to visit, and pretty much it's what it sounds to me is you go the wrong way. You might get stuck a little bit, longer than you expected, which, that makes sense, because it's a town that seems like where people, come and pass by while they're going to, their final. It's like Alamogordo, where I'm from. There's a lot of people that pass by to go to Ruidoso, Cloudcroft, and so there's a lot of passerbyers as well. And it's the heaviest drug trafficked road in the whole nation. So there's that one too. We get a lot of strangers on our roads.
No, it's very busy.
Yeah, and, it sounds like it too. And you guys adding to the busyness too. And I'm sure, you're adding, well needed, tax revenue into the town and city and everything that's needed and all that too. Because, look at the sales, you guys are doing pretty good. That's that's nothing to, not be proud of, because, like I can't say many shops here in Cruces that are doing those same numbers. So, it's pretty cool to see that. And like, I look, I'm like, dang, good for y'all, man. Y'all are pumping and dumping. But let's talk about the growth for a little bit. You mentioned that you were working on that, you're trying to get it going and anything, but ran into just some bumps. What are some of the issues that you ran into? Maybe some people are running into the same thing.
Yeah, well, if you're going to do a construction project in JAL, you should basically tell yourself whatever general timeline you're given. Traditionally, you're told, multiply that by 2. If you're in jail, just go ahead and multiply that by 3 or 4, just so you don't get your hopes up in any way, and just so you can financially prepare for all the delays to ensure you're going to be able to hang on that long. Because I think that maybe another issue of why people may come down is because we still have to abide by all of the code throughout like the rest of the state of New Mexico. We're so close to Texas. People still think you can do kind of like what Texas does when you can't at all. It's very expensive, and with JAL being kind of in the middle of nowhere, there's no local construction companies, everything is travel. So if you get a company out of Texas or a company out of Hobbs, especially with fuel prices the way they are, whatever your bid would be locally, you're going to have to add fuel and transport and additional time just for that job. And then if you, like everything around here, with the oil field being so busy, electricians and those kinds of auxiliaries are always super busy. So if something in your project gets delayed even by a day, like in our instance, we had a shipping delay on our lights from the manufacturer. And that 3-day shipping delay costed us probably 3 months in time, because construction projects and electricians are lined up so tightly down here that we missed our window and they had to move on to other projects. And then try to come back and squeeze us back in throughout the rest of the schedule. It's just little things like that that I think a lot of people don't foresee. I definitely didn't. I maybe have thought there'd be a few because we dealt with those kind of issues with the dispensary, but the dispensary is a normal building. You throw in like an automated greenhouse in the middle of the desert, you're not going to find many people that are that are professional and know exactly what to do and how to do the automations and how to put it up. And if you want to do the double plastic, down here is definitely not a good idea. Most people can get 2 to 3 years off of those. We thought we could too, just to get us by and save a little bit. And we haven't even made it through the season, and it's already been completely ripped off with all of the wind storms that we've had down here. So we've had to completely pivot, try to reallocate funds, and now we're going with a rigid polycarbonate to try to make sure we can get additional life and not have to maintenance it every year. There's just constant pivoting and willingness to change, I think. And with us being so willing to do that, I think that's the reason why we're still here, because every day is something different. And if you're not happy to pivot and happy to try to just make it work, it can really eat at you.
Yeah, I like to tell people to simper Gumby, always flexible, especially in this industry, because, stuff like that happens. And there's always the unknown variables that are just waiting to be, surfaced. And we don't know about them until they happen like that, and I deal with the same thing. I'm trying to get the hash rosin stuff going. We got our building going, and, we're dealing with the little tiny things here and there. And you're just like, oh, well, we didn't think of that one, or like, oh, well, we got to get that now, and so it's almost like a never ending thing. But, if you're able to, like you said, reallocate funds and also be patient, it pays off in the end. And you already know that this takes a while. I mean, you said you started in 2021, didn't open until 2023. So you already know that, it happens. And so I could tell that you're just like, it sucks, but what do you do? We're just in, and like where you're located geographically, it makes it even harder because, yeah, it does cost a lot more to get stuff out there. And, it's unfortunate that those electricians are so busy. I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong. We have a surplus in the state, all that good stuff. But when you have smaller projects like this, it kind of makes it a pain in the ass. And being so far out there, if you guys don't know how far it is, it's out there. I've looked at it. For me, I think it's over 5 hours from for here in Cruces, I think. Huh?
I said that's far. No, because it takes me about 5-6 hours to get back up in the northwest corner.
Yeah,
5 hours from here to Jal, man.
Yeah,
of course, you're taking a bunch of smaller roads.
Yeah, and it's a little quicker if you actually go through Texas, like if you because a lot of people.
Yeah, but who wants to do that?
Yeah, especially for the cannabis industry, you're not wanting to go through that Sierra Blanca check. Fuck that. Yeah. So, what's up?
I'll risk it sometimes.
We all do. We all have to sometimes. But yeah, it's that little bit of extra time that it takes to go through, like like Alamogordo, Ruidoso, and Clawcroft. That's money. So I totally get it and everything. But yeah, that's so. You think maybe next year you guys maybe have the grow going and everything like that?
Yeah. So we are hoping and praying really hard that we'll have it sooner rather than later, and hopefully towards the end of this year we can put it in production. Which we're not the most ecstatic to throw it in like at winter, but that's the whole point of a temp-controlled greenhouse is us being able to do that anyways. So better than starting it in the middle of the summer. We're just going to go ahead and take it to where we can. And then we've partnered and up with another local grow that unfortunately wasn't able to make it, and their partners ended up parting ways. And instead of them going out, they're also going to be where we are, and they're going to produce some outdoor stuff as well. So that way we can get either some fresh frozen out to the market for hash, or fill in any other holes that we can with some flour and help them out and make sure they keep going. I know there's a lot of small guys are really, they're the ones who are all tucking out right now. So
yeah, exactly.
To help where we can. So we're really excited about that too.
Dope, and congratulations on that. So, and being where you are, like I said, it makes sense to be more self-sufficient. Like it doesn't take as long to replenish, this and that. If you run into a supplier, or even like the issue with like Blue Bonnet, like we had this was it last year? Yeah, I know your guys must have been affected too by it. Like something like that. That would be a lot easier for you to pivot from if you had that. And I tell people in the stand, like, don't worry about having a grow, dude, if you have a, retail or whatever. But in your situation, I would say, yeah, go ahead and do it, because it just makes sense, you know, like being out there so far and then partnering with other people, you can get that different kind of genetics and everything going on too for the consumers, because I'm sure the Texans palate kind of changes throughout time. So I mean, if you don't mind, if there's no other updates, you know, let's pivot to that conversation, because I'm really curious to, you know, hear your take on like the whole Texas border stuff.
Yeah, so like with us, you're right, most of our consumers are definitely Texans. They love carts, they love things that aren't going to get them in trouble, and a lot of them really love traditional old flower, and just like everyone else, they like the new stuff too. I've noticed with Texans, they do gravitate towards just potency, so I think with time, we'll be able to like lead them towards like aroma or the terpene profiles, but again, I think that is going to take time. With their current legislative situation, we have had a lot more people coming in lately requesting and buying like lockable cases. They're all being very aware of their amendment rights, so that way they can make sure that they can still get whatever medicinal things that they need, and they won't be as anxious to travel. But even with them tightening, we haven't noticed any decrease in customers. If anything, we've noticed an increase. I know we've picked up a lot more of like topical users, the older crowd that aren't willing to smoke, but they're in it for the pain relief. So we launched our own topical line, and that sold out so fast. So we're trying to work to get all of those products replenished and get them back, and maybe get them on the wholesale market to help some other people as well. But we haven't noticed that their legislation is slowing them down in any way.
Yeah, and that was my curiosity, because you know they essentially defeated, you know, the hemp ban 3 times this year. You know, congratulations to you, Texas. That's impressive. You know, like one was a veto and the rest they just defeated. I was like, that's damn impressive for Texas to do. So yeah, I was kind of curious, you know, what changes are going to come, if there are any, or you know, is it going to like, you know, increase sales? Because I know if they were going to ban it in total, that would probably increase sales in your guys' areas exponentially. Because you know it'd be way harder to get, you know, certain things, and then of course on top of it, people are gonna have to be even more discreet. But you know, luckily we're on the timeline where that didn't happen, or didn't happen yet. So you know, we'll hopefully, you know, things keep, you know, moving that direction and everything. So what do you think is the future for that era? Because we know it's almost like a ticking time bomb. You know, how much longer do we have for Texas until they legalize? I say we have 4 to 6 years essentially, because this past legislative session really gave me an idea of what's to come on the next legislative session. I think the next legislative session, because they do it every 2 years, we're going to see more pushing for regulation. And I have a feeling there's going to be a big shift in their legislature too. I think Lieutenant Dan, his days might be a little numbered in the Texas, the Texas government. So, you know, we'll see what happens, because, you know, and it wasn't just with cannabis, it was with a few things. So we'll see what happens with that. And, you know, I've been really curious, you know, what do you think is gonna happen with all that information?
I really do think a lot of the Texans will probably get away from the concentrates, and they'll more risk getting caught with flower. Because, yeah. I mean, if they get caught with carts or edibles, they're looking at a felony almost immediately, versus flower, they can at least just stare at a misdemeanor and let a judge decide. Yeah. Versus having to risk their future or anything. So I hope that legislation doesn't continue to go backwards for them, because I know that would struggle, but like you said, it's like a ticking time bomb. I know a lot of the places in New Mexico that rely on Texans having to travel to New Mexico to get what they need are really going to suffer, versus places like our situation that are more passerby reliant. I mean, if you're on a major highway, I mean, we get people, we track just to keep their loyalty points. We kind of track where people are from by their IDs, and we can tell by people passing by that we get people from Canada, Hawaii, New York. It's not just Texas. Versus if your whole place is just, well, as soon as it goes legal, it'll take time over there, but eventually it's going to pull from New Mexico.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Thank you for that. Oh, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, I still think we've got time, but I think it's something that everyone kind of needs to be aware, put in their business plans if they're only reliant on people having to drive to their location because they can't find it locally. Because 5 to 10 years from now, that might not be the situation.
Yeah, 100%. And you're a smart lady, and I figured you took that into account. But you know, a lot of people have it, and I've had this conversation with many people, and people are like, "Oh, you want Texas to legalize it?" It's like, it's not that I want Texas to legalize it. You know, it's the fact that they are going to legalize it eventually. There's no fact or matter about it. It may take 20 years, it may take 5, but the fact is they're eventually going to legalize it at some point. You should be ready for that day. And you've already taken precautions and you've already thought about it, because yeah, you are in a different situation than, let's say, Sunland Park. Sunland Park is not one of the, you know, passerby places that people end up, you're just driving through because they just happen to be on the road or their industry takes them there. You know, if people are driving to Sunland Park for the sole purpose of getting cannabis only. Before that, I never really went to Sunland Park other than the little, you know, amusement park that we have there when I was a kid. You know, it was the last time I really went there. So there's really no reason for me to go to Sunland Park. But now, you know, it's different. Well, they will still get some customers that live closer to Sunland Park in the El Paso area. But once El Paso picks up and they get going, I see a lot of those stores suffering if they haven't figured out how to keep Texans there. And I keep telling them, open up your lounges. You know, like Sunland Park needs those lounges. If you're going to make it longevity in Sunland Park, you need to have a lounge. You know, because that's how you're really going to keep those Texans there, and that's how you're going to keep them to come to you. But El Paso already has like a hemp lounge that I saw like a couple months ago that was setting up. Yeah, really? And a few weeks ago, someone sent me a picture, and it looks like they're almost done with it. So yeah, they're going to have like essentially a cannabis lounge, you know, over in El Paso. So I do want to go check that out to see how it looks, because Texas already has a bunch. So I mean, they're already kind of ahead of a lot of the nation on a lot of this stuff. So once they get the proper legislation in, man, they're going to kill it. They're going to do a good job. And, you know, those people are ready. And a lot of them are learning already from other states, like, you know, here in New Mexico and other states too. And they're going to take that knowledge to Texas and apply that. And do you guys have any plans yourself to maybe crossing that Texas line too and operating in both states?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we definitely ensure that we like maintain all of our data and everything so we can backtrack and make sure we can look at habits that our consumers like. So if at the time we do decide to go over, we thankfully don't have as much stumbling, and we can just go off of all the stumbling we already did in New Mexico, and we can skip a few delays and a few issues over there. So it's always a conversation. It's just, we're just as reliant on Texas as Texas is.
On us, yeah, 100%. Like, especially in my area too. You know, we rely on El Paso a lot, and even Juarez. You know, like all 3 of us kind of rely on each other in this area. And, you know, our economies are essentially, you know, tied to each other. We're like, you know, the triplets that are tied at the hip. You know, we can't get away from each other, and that's okay. We're fine with it. But yeah, you know, we need each other, you know, just as much as one or the other. You know, like a good example is, you know, not just the cannabis, but, you know, they love our chili and they love our mountains. You know, like, I don't know how many times I go home and, you know, I go to the mountains and you see nothing but Texas plates up in Ruidoso or Cloudcroft. So, you know, yeah. What's up?
No, I said absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Same here. I notice that all the time.
Yeah. Did you guys ever head up to Ruidoso and Cloudcroft? You know, just a couple of days off that you get. And I'm sure it's like once a year.
It's been a while, but yeah, we went up with a friend of ours a few months ago, and we had a really great time. But if we go, it's literally just a disconnect. We usually don't leave the cabin unless we're going hiking, and we go just to get with nature and make sure phones are off and hang out with the kids, try to squeeze in family time, and then we come back. I haven't got a chance to, since I'm usually with my kids, go and check out like the consumption lounges and all the stuff down there, which I'd really like to try to do that. Do
it, definitely. If you need some recommendations, let me know. And I'll let the guys know ahead of time that you guys are headed in, and maybe they'll give you a red carpet or something like that. So let me know. Yeah, there's some pretty cool lounges over there.
Awesome, thank you. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, of course. So what are some other, you know, thoughts that you have on this whole Texas situation? How long do you personally think it's going to take for them to legalize it?
Personally, I think they've already started getting the ball rolling in their own way. I know a lot of people see the tightening of regulations as like a step backwards, but I see it as a way for them to figure out how to actually regulate it so they can legalize it and tax it. At the end of the day, these politicians only care about one thing, and tax money is usually one of those things. So at the end of the day, they know they're going to have to, if it goes federally, they just want to be able to control how that revenue comes to them and how they regulate it and how the money moves or how they can get other, in my opinion, they're trying to figure out how they can make sure that they're going to benefit off of this cannabis industry if they're going to have to deal with it anyways. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they'll get there for sure after they figure out how they're going to benefit off of it directly. Yeah,
I agree with you. And for me, you know, I don't see a lot of huge budging until federal regulations change, because that's just how Texas operates. But it's a huge step in the correct direction for them, what Abbott did with, you know, his executive order, you know, and going to really regulate the plant itself. And then that's what everybody was asking for. You know, that's what the advocates were asking for. That's what the business owners were asking for. That's where a lot of the parents were asking for. I know you had some of the parents that wanted it banned, but most of the parents were like, dude, just regulate it. Like, what the hell? You know, like my grandma uses it.
Yeah, I think I've told you before that, you know, it's all about the cash. Once they figure out how that revenue gets in and the whole state of Texas gets to take part of that, oh, I guarantee the politicians are going to go like, oh, why didn't we do this earlier?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they are essentially funding the UBI program in Albuquerque. You know, the Texans, you know, with all the tax money, because about 50% of our sales come from Texas. And in areas like where you're at, it's over 90%, you know. So, you know, the Texans are, you know, funding a lot of stuff for us that could be used for their own state. Don't get me wrong. We love it. It's helping us a lot. But, you know, if they should be focusing on what their state could benefit from and what they're losing. I mean, because it's not losing just to us. They're losing to Oklahoma. They're losing to every other state that borders them that has, even Louisiana. You know, they're losing some money too. So
they're getting that Cajun weed. One of the things that, I mean, I know you guys talk a lot about how Texas could possibly, you know, really be a detriment to New Mexico as far as maybe dispensaries and all that along the border. I mean, with all of these states like, you know, California, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, all on that line right there, I think the growers could really make out by getting some of that New Mexico weed over into Texas.
Yeah, you know, once we have interstate commerce, that's going to be a huge game changer.
And I think that depends on the federal.
Yes, it does. So in our Cannabis Regulation Act here in New Mexico, there's actually a trigger law. Once the federal regulations change, and right now the way that it's written is both governors have to go into an agreement that they want to do interstate commerce. And once they do that, then it's interstate commerce. However, I feel that language needs to change, just be a straight trigger. That once the federal law changes, then we will start enacting a interstate commerce kind of thing.
Well, I don't even think you need to have the two governors agree, because once it goes legal, I mean, that's
what I mean. We need to change it, so it's just going to be triggered. So once the federal law changes, then we're allowed to do that, and we need to start setting up or have something previously set up. That's just a light switch to turn on, but you know, in the state, we know we don't do that.
I mean, I'm just thinking of Chad taking a vacation to Hawaii and finding some jaw weed there. You know? Wouldn't that be awesome?
That'd be cool as shit. I can't wait for that day.
It'll all be because of Kaytlinne.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like out there just, you know, slinging and banging. You know, some random Hawaiian person came to the shop, and the next thing you know, the guy happened to open the shop. Try this. Yeah, I want to shop in Hawaii. I want this there. So yeah, the possibilities are there, and you know, we can get there with, you know, solid legislation in the future.
It's a matter of time.
It is, and be it 5 or 10 years, I don't know. You know, the reschedule thing. And to be honest, we have a conversation on that a little later in the show. We're going to talk about. So I'll update everybody what's going on with the federal stuff. But before that, let's finish this conversation with Kaytlinne and everything, and then the Gray Moon stuff. So thank you for, you know, your updates and everything. Is there any other like conversations that you have on the Texas side that you wanted to bring up that I may have forgotten?
I can't think of. The only thing that I know that's like affected us was whenever they started tightening. I don't remember if you remember that we talked about last time we were able to do billboards and ads over in Texas.
Yes.
We can't do that anymore.
No way. What'd they say?
Literally not the government. It's per company, just like everyone has that right. And unfortunately, the billboard company that we were doing business with, and we still do business with them, they're great. But he sold all of his Texas billboards to someone a little bit more conservative who has issues with cannabis because someone dear to him had some issues with other Schedule I drugs. So they just will not do business with any type of cannabis company. They will not advertise for them. And unfortunately, in our area, they hold like 90% of the affordable billboards, and the rest of them are like Lamar, that's like double my mortgage. And it's just not really realistic for anyone to advertise in those big ones. So I don't think there's now any cannabis advertisements like in West Texas or anything anymore.
That's crazy to hear. I had no clue because, you know, over here, you know, El Paso has them left and right. I saw like 10 mango billboards the other day. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if that's happening in other places of the state too, you know, like, because yeah, it's up to the company if they want to allow that or not. And you know, if someone who doesn't like cannabis gets a hold of it, then dang, that's crazy. I didn't know that. It's unfortunate, but you know, you're a smart woman, and I'm sure that you've been able to pivot in a good way to help. Yeah. And who knows, you know, probably even better than the one before.
We pivot, it's okay. We'll figure it out. I'm sure at some point when they change their mind, we'll be one of the first calls that they get.
Exactly. You know.
Yeah. Kaytlinne's thinking about starting a billboard business.
There you go. That might be a good little venture.
Fix a problem.
I know, right? So we got a problem. That's what Apple did. So Apple, and Gino and I actually both worked for Apple at one point. They had an issue with the companies that were providing the glasses for their stores. And they kept telling them, no, we can't do that. It's too big. And they said, bullshit. And so they bought the company. And so that's why they have like these ridiculous slabs of glass in front of their shops and everything, is because they got tired of the company telling them no.
Good thing those glasses don't break like their phones. Sorry, that was a little hard.
But you're going to say something, Kaytlinne? I'm sorry.
No, I'm good. It's funny. Other than that, I really don't think that there's anything else that I can add to the conversation. We thankfully don't have as many issues with like Border Patrol or anything down here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, and you guys are very fortunate for that, because yeah, over here it's a little ridiculous, and sometimes it's like, come on, guys. But you know, I'm glad that you don't have to deal with that. And you know, a lot of your product can come down from Albuquerque and into that area, you know, fairly safely in the other areas. So I'm happy for you guys for that. One day we'll get that solved too, because that's so ridiculous. You know, you have hemp that goes through all the time, and then you have cannabis, and it's kind of like this whole weird thing. So I'll go through it sometimes, and I'll be like, "What are you hauling today?" And I was like, "Fucking backpack full of my clothes. You want to smell it?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "All right, see you later."
They don't want to smell it, Chad.
I've heard the craziest stories. Literally, a regulated business went through with like manifested paperwork, and obviously all of what was paperwork got seized, but all of their personal belongings were not. Like all of their dab stuff, everything was good to go, but anything that they had paperwork for, they had to take.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous.
Oh, that's messed up.
Yeah, it's almost like it's better to just go through with personal than it is like, you know, like actual manifested stuff.
Yeah, let me just smuggle it through instead of taking my paperwork and doing it how you guys want me to.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, let me not be an outstanding citizen and, you know, being honest with you. It's like, I know I have to lie to you and, you know, operate in a different way. I don't want to.
Yeah, you had your paperwork for that one sample when we went up to.
Oh, yeah. Gino got to see all the paperwork we do. I took a sample to Munchies, and I was like, this paper and this paper. I got to sign this one. He has to sign that one. And we need this one, too, to track some other bullshit. So, yeah.
And that was for a sample.
That was for a sample. It wasn't even for a sale.
Yeah.
The amount of paperwork is crazy. We actually just got a visit from the CCD last week. We got inspected, and that's what me and the officer were talking about, was if there was ever going to be a time we could try to get some of this stuff. And she was like, you know, everything we can keep, it can be electronic. And I was like, and if I lose it? I was like, if we get like a server issue? I was like, I'd rather just keep all of these boxes and boxes of paperwork just so I can know I've got it.
Yeah, that way I can just go grab it for you guys, and you know, you sort it out, not me.
Yeah, here's like my 80,000 manifests that you can go sort through.
And you know, we're in 2025. You figured that we could do everything digitally, you know, because you could send things almost instantly due to technology, and it just feels like they're keeping us in the Stone Age with this. I have to print it out, get it signed, get this other thing printed. I'm like, dude, I could send all this through BioTrack and it could be there instantly. And by the time
I thought that was what BioTrack was doing.
No. That'd be too smart.
Like, you'd think that with everything we send, it would just, you know, track and trace it like what we're doing, but I guess that's not enough.
I guess, and then I've been actually pushing a lot for the state to start. Like when we went to the rules hearing a couple of weeks ago, you know, I straight up told them, I said, it's actually time for us to start looking at where we can deregulate this industry. There's a lot of fat that we can cut off, and there's a lot of unnecessary things that we do that are just more of a burden on the operators than anything. You know, like the license number and everything. The customer does not give a shit about the license number. You know, like they do not care. They don't even read half the shit that's on the label. You know, like there's a lot of times where they'll ask me a question. I'm like, well, that's actually on the label. They're like, oh, really? I'm like, oh, shit. So, you know, like I know for sure that they don't read shit. Warning labels, nothing. Instructions there, they're just a little blank fucking slate of nothing on there.
That's why the warning labels are there.
What's that?
It's always all on there too. I had someone ask, you know, where was this made? And I was like, it's right there, like on our nutritional facts. It even has the address. Like,
go visit them. It's like I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah, that's the way I am too. So yeah, if we can get to a day where it's not too crazy, it'd be great. Because I mean, I even look at like Cheetos and the amount of stuff that they have to put on there, and I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. I feel like we're getting to this point, and we don't need to be. You know, there's some stuff that we can take off, and you know, the QR codes are a wonderful thing. You can put most of the information that needs to be there on a freaking QR code and don't have to burden people. So I digress on that and everything, but I want to thank you so much for joining me today on this conversation, the update and all that. I'm glad you guys are still killing it out there. Congratulations. You know, and you know, I know that the struggles and everything that you guys go through, you're able to pivot through it. You know, Super Gumby, even though that's my thing I use, but you know, people like you that have that mindset are going to make it in the end. You know, like, you know what to look for, and you're already thinking ahead of time. I think you don't have a 5-year plan. I think you have a 10, 15-year plan. is kind of the way that I kind of feel. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and that's good. You know, that's great, you know, that you're doing that, and, you know, there's other plans to fall back on. So is there anything else that you want to share before we move on to the next conversation?
No, I'm good. I'm ready to move on to the next one.
Awesome. And if you guys are ever in Jal, New Mexico, go check them out. I know I do if I'm ever in the area, which, you know, I'm very rarely in that part of the state and everything. So one day I'll be able to go check it out and, you know, maybe drop some samples off or something like that. So should be fun. What's up, Gina?
Oh, nothing. I was just
come down. Either one of you guys would love to have y'all.
Of course, that'd be great. And, you know, it was great to meet both you and your husband in person last year, by the way. I got to tell people about that. Like, oh, yeah, I met him in person. The husband's like, oh, yeah, you're just a lot of the person as you are online. I was like, that's fair. I was like, he's a funny guy.
You know, unfortunately, he couldn't join us today. Us having the kids, and it's all a village. Today was just one of those days that everyone had doctor's appointments.
It happens. Yeah. I know we had to push the show a little bit, so it's like no big deal, but it happens, dude. I get it. And tell him I said hello, and, you know, keep on working and everything. I'm sure that he does a lot of the heavy lifting.
For sure. And honestly, he's just as loud as you. So if anything, it was a compliment.
It's like, dang, you beat me.
He was voted most likely to be heard in high school.
That's pretty funny. I don't know what I got voted for. I don't even remember. I don't even think I got anything in high school. But yeah, loud was probably one of the. No, I don't think I did it either, to be honest. High school is like a weird time.
I think I'm supposed to have a 10-year reunion, but I haven't heard anything, so I don't plan on doing anything for it.
So young.
I know, right? My 20 is next year.
Really?
Yeah, my 20-year reunion is next year. You're going on 40, Gino? Gino's going on 40 years.
Well, I got like
nice.
4 more years until we get to the 40.
Nice. Are you going to go?
Hell no. We didn't even do anything for our 30th because we did the 20th and somebody absconded with the money that they were raising for it. So.
Oh my gosh.
That's the most New Mexico thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. So we didn't even do anything for 30th.
That is so New Mexico.
Just so I let all the young people know, by the time you get up to that, you know, 40th year reunion type thing, they start combining them. It's like, oh, these classes where everybody's still alive, come over.
Like,
well, that's something for me.
For each class show up.
I know, right? It's like, where's everyone else at?
Freshman when I was there, yeah.
It's like there's like 20 of us left. Yeah, but We'll see if I go to my 20 year. We'll see
It'll be
whatever.
fun.
You know,
10 years fun though. 10 years blast.
10 year was fun. Yeah, I went to my 10 year. I did do that.
Yeah,
That was
fun.
interesting to see where everyone's at. So
Yeah, we'll see if we have one. I don't know.
yeah. How many people did you graduate with, by the way?
15.
No, so I graduated at UNIS. I think Giles was close
Oh,
to that 15, but I
30.
graduated, I think 36.
I was close.
I was number one.
The first one. That's hilarious. I always like to ask people from like really small schools, I'm like, how many people did you graduate? It's like, oh, 12. I'm like, oh my God.
That happened
that's
in Giles 2 years before me. The Giles senior class had 12 students in the graduating class.
Wow.
It's like Tularosa. Tularosa's like that.
Amen.
Small town, New Mexico.
Oh, that's how it is, man. Do they do 6-man football there?
No, they do.
They don't have 6 men for the team.
Considering moving down to 8-man, I'm not sure if they ended up doing it or not. But
Yeah, that's interesting. I've seen that a couple times.
Yeah.
That's wild the way they play that, because like everybody's like eligible to catch in those leagues. Like the center's like making touchdowns.
They're playing both offense and defense.
Yeah, it's wild, dude.
It's like a playground game.
Yeah, it's a very high. Yeah, it's high speed.
Oh,
yeah, and if you win by 40 points, you win. This is like if you're ahead by 40 points, you just win. I was like, what?
That's a New Mexico thing.
It is it?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that has to be. So if you guys ever get a chance, check out 8 or 6-man football. Crazy. It's fun to watch. Really entertaining. But anyway, we'll move on to the next topic and everything. I won't keep everybody stuck on the same topic. You know, we got a couple more to get through for the rest of the episode. So thank you so much for the update and everything. You know, I wish you all nothing but luck. I know you're gonna, make really better decisions than most people do in the industry here, just for the fact that you guys, take more into consideration. And operators out there, take notes. This is something that you guys should be looking at to do. You gotta put in your work and due diligence, to stay successful. And this is a prime example right here. So thank you so much for joining me. And before we move on, where can people find you guys online and real life?
They can find us in real life in Jal, New Mexico at 3411 New Mexico Highway 18. And then online, they can find us at graymoonnm.com. And on Instagram and social medias, we're getting our stuff back up. So I'll share those in the chat after, because like everyone else, we've gotten ours taken down and had to restart.
Yeah. We've all felt that. That sucks so much. So thank you for that. And yeah, I'll try to get it shared and everything. And Gina, if you don't mind, I'll send you the information afterwards. So yeah, I'll get you guys that information. Go check them out if you're in Joel. Even if you're just driving by, go check them out. I'm looking to check it out whenever I get the chance to. So with that being said, let's move on to the next conversation. And this one, it has to do with New Mexico. And this is something that I had no clue was going on. So I say old. They used to have a license here in New Mexico. They don't anymore. And they went by the Albuquerque Cannabis Corporation. And they were operating in the state, growing and all that good stuff. But a flood happened. And it wasn't a normal flood. This flood was pretty much man-made due to some negligence from an estate employee who left a gate open. And it flooded their whole farm. So they lost 800 plants. Everything got contaminated with E. coli because it was poop water. It wasn't just like regular water.
Not even just regular water.
Yeah. It was wastewater essentially. And so their whole farm got washed out. And this is my first time hearing about this, and this came out a few days ago, and I wanted more information to come out before I brought it on the show. But I thought, this is actually a good prime example of how the government can really screw your business over. And they're suing the state for over $400,000. That's what the lawsuit is. And they just, and I think the reason why I didn't hear anything about this is because they just filed it last month, like at the end of the month on the 28th, actually. Yeah, so it's only been a couple weeks that this has actually been announced that it's a lawsuit. I have the case number for out here for all you lawsuit nerds out there. It's Delta 117 Charlie Victor 2025-00343. You guys can look that up and check it out for yourselves and read the lawsuit and what it says. I tried to look up that company. They're not operating anymore. It looks like they were solely, for the most part, a out-of-state entity that came here to operate, because the only guy listed on there, he came from California, and he came from grows in California. So to me, it seemed like an out-of-state operator that tried their hand here and got fucked over by the state, due to someone messing up.
Maybe that's the reason they're not here anymore.
Yeah, and
$400,000 loss.
Oh, then that's exactly why they went out of business, because of this. They couldn't sell it. they couldn't do anything. They had to literally just almost close their doors and try to figure it out, or, you know, sell everything. So this is going to be interesting to see, because I'm wondering how many other businesses in the state have dealt with similar, you know, and I don't mean getting poop water sprayed on their farm or their crop, but I mean like the government doing something, making such a huge mistake that it causes them to go out of business. And, you know, we've seen that with like the local jurisdictions on some of the rules that they create. A prime example is here in Cruces, they have a limit on how close you can be to a dispensary, but you can get a special use permit, and that pretty much negates that, and you can still be 10 feet, 3 feet, 1 feet from, you know, another dispensary. Well, what that actually did is it caused the people that could afford that to hold off, to stay here, and it kept the locals out. So they unintentionally kept locals out of the industry by creating rules and laws like that. So the guys from Texas and California who came here with all the funds to do it were able to stay afloat and get in first. Now, not everyone is here still. There's actually some that I've seen, like especially here in Solana. Actually, one of them was Empire. Empire was one of them. They were from El Paso. They had the money. They got the, you know, whatever. And then poor Queen Bee, she's been here the whole time. But just because they got their meeting first, she had to wait a whole year for her to get her special use permit hearing. And it took her even longer to get her license. Luckily, she had a smoke shop to keep her going through the time, because, you know, she was like transitioning to smoke shop, you know, dispensary. So luckily she was able to do that. But it's unfortunate that that happened in the first place. And that's a prime example of, and Trey, if you're seeing this, sorry, I don't mean to use that example, but, you know, it's a prime example of, you know, when the cities and state, you know, overreaches and we overregulate things. Kaytlinne, do you have any examples yourself that you've heard from, you know, people maybe possibly getting something similar happening to them? I know I'm not meaning poop water.
I don't know about that similar, but I do know that at least with zoning, I've had people come to me asking for help if there's anything they can do, and it really just like comes down to their locality, however they're willing to work with them. And thankfully, Jal, I haven't had any issues here, but I know a lot of people have had issues in other places where they were maybe trying to save up the money to be able to afford the rent that just drastically got skyrocketed whenever they thought it would be this. So they had to save up a few more funds and wait, you know, 6 to 8 months. Well, in the time that they waited, another dispensary popped up right next to where they were going to, and now it's out of sight of zoning. So just like the same situation, the people who wanted to, all the locals who unfortunately had to deal with rent hikes and all of the problems across the board and with costs, weren't able to jump in as fast as the people, like you said, from out of state that had the money to just go ahead and write it out, because they knew there would be higher sales in the beginning. I mean, you know what the market looks like now. I mean,
yeah,
crazy.
9 day different. Yeah, totally different. I remember pounds are going for like anywhere from $2,500 or $4,000. You know, I'd even hear $5,000 pounds sometimes. Like, and this is not even like good shit. You know, it's just something to put on your shelf.
Is that a lot? Not
it's about a turkey bag.
I don't know.
So yeah, you know, 100%. You know, and it's unfortunate that this happens. You know, and in this case, it wasn't even, you know, a city creating rules. It was just a state employee not closing a certain gate is what I'm from understanding from the lawsuit. That's what they said. You know, we don't know what the government has said yet, because this has yet to make its way through court. So I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. I have a feeling they might win.
I have a feeling that they could win too, because if that were any other kind of agricultural crop and something like that happened, they not only would get that, they'd get damages and the whole thing like this. So hopefully, if the courts are looking at that, you know, we should be good. They should probably win. Yeah,
and the unfortunate part is, you know, taxpayers got to, you know, burden that cost, you know, but hopefully the state can learn from it. Usually they don't, but you know, that's I mean, it's 400 pounds of flour and trim contaminated. That's a lot, dude. You know, that's a lot of money.
That's more than me.
You know, so
not by a lot, but it's more than me.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, if you guys lost 400 pounds, I mean, that would, I'm sure, would be detrimental for sure. You know,
it would definitely put us out of business, just like it put them out of business. That's really hard to recover from, especially if you just don't have those kinds of funds. And I'm sure they probably had crop insurance, but crop insurance only goes so far.
Yeah, you know, you can't just save your business, you know, when something like this happens, and you know,
what time of the season was it? Because if that crop was say ready to
from my understanding, I'm thinking it was spring to summer, because you know it flooded all of their greenhouses too. So it wrecked all the plants inside of the greenhouses and everything else that they had. Yeah, so and right here it says some of the damages: 4 greenhouses, pumps and irrigation equipment, 850 plants, and then the 400 pounds of flower and trim.
Yeah, so that's not even just the plants, just all the equipment.
Yeah, it was the whole farm. Yeah, the whole farm. What it sounds like to me is the farm got flooded, like everything, you know, with this contaminated water, and that's where, you know, the reason why they're asking. And to be honest, I think the 400,000 is a very conservative number for them. I thought they were going to go for close to $1 million.
They should go for that. They might get it.
Yeah, and they probably win. They should go for that, and they probably win. I mean, realistically, this sounds like a pretty crazy door, because obviously that's a lot of water, and it sounds like a door that that's probably put into practice that it must always be shut. So if this was just negligence, I can't see how they don't win.
Me too, because like it's pretty cut and dry. It's like we did nothing. We were operating within the law and everything, the CCD and all that. And then
like I said, if it was any other agricultural crop, you know.
If that was green chili, dude, people would have had their heads would have been rolling. Yeah. All of us are like, oh my God. That's a Cardinals.
Not the chili.
Not the chili. Anything but the chili.
Take to the streets. Like, we would be rioting.
Heads would have literally rolled.
Was that worker from Colorado?
Even worse. And they're from Colorado. Oh.
It was done on purpose.
To make it worse, the Pueblo at that. You want to see us crash out? But all jokes aside, I really do hope that, you know, they do get some relief from that, because regardless of where they're from, no one should be dealing with E. coli on their crops, or, you know, trying to follow the law and just getting flooded because a state employee didn't shut a gate or door or whatever it is, you know, or didn't do their job right. You know, that's not fair. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I wanted to update you all because this is kind of big, because I keep telling people that people need to sue the state whenever things aren't right. You know, be it the CCD or the state itself. The industry needs to start using that leverage that we have. We can do that now, you know, and I keep telling people. So it's unfortunate the taxpayers have to, you know, pay for this, but at the same time, the state fucked up, you know, and, you know, they do need to get repaid for that, because yeah. And to be honest, I'm surprised it's that low. You know, $400K for the amount of damage that's pretty low. So we'll see what happens. Do you guys have anything before we move on to the last topic?
Thank God it wasn't chili.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that they'd have to do like dirt remediation. Like, it's E. coli. It just does seem like a super low number to fix it.
Yeah, 100%. You know, like that's kind of shitty. So I'm curious if that farm is usable after that. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, would they have any like sort of dirt reclamation or anything to clean that up? That would be on the state too, wouldn't it?
I think it would be. Yeah, I think the state would probably have to do that, because that is they contaminated the soil, you know, through their negligence. So yeah, I would say it'd be them, but I'm not the courts and I'm not the judge, so we'll see.
Keep an eye on it.
Yeah. If there's going to be a jury, I have no clue, you know, but we'll see. Anyway, that's all I have for that one. I wanted to update everybody on it, because that's kind of huge. And if you're dealing with something like this, please sue. You know, that way we can get better practices in the state, or things fixed, or, you know, get you repaid for what you lost. You know, that was unfair, you know, like in a case like this. If you guys have any other information on that, please let me know. I'm going to try to reach out to one of the only owner that was mentioned in all the paperwork and everything. His name is Derek Watts. I found him on LinkedIn, so maybe he'll come on the show and give us their side. You know, that'd be good to hear. So, you know, we'll see. You know, I left the last part of the season kind of open for, you know, stuff like this. So, anyway, we're going to jump to the last conversation for today's episode. I'm going to be giving you guys a federal update. Now, with the federal government, it's weird. There's a lot of weird shit going on. You got one side saying, yeah, we're doing this. And then another side's like, no, we're not doing that. Then you have the president saying, yeah, I want to reschedule it. And then you have like the DEA like, no, fuck that. And then you have some people in Congress like, oh, yeah, really fuck that. Yeah. And I'm like, this is so confusing. And then you have like, you know, the Democrats that just entered a descheduling bill. And there's like 40 or 50 of them on that. And so I'm like, well, that's cool, but you're not going to get it passed if you don't get any Republicans on board. You know, like they're the ones in majority now. So it's really confusing right now.
Just take a bong into one of those back rooms where the Republicans are meeting.
Dude, they're probably doing cocaine.
Oh, yeah, we don't need any of this weak weed stuff.
Yeah, I don't need the marijuana to ruin my cocaine high. Yeah, so
let's get them some infused butter on toast, and I bet we can change their minds.
Ooh,
tea.
Sneak it in there.
Heck yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, I had an idea to take some cannabis products to the state legislature, but I wanted to take it to the area where they all meet afterwards. It's at a hotel. And I thought it'd be a good idea to get the industry to do that. But, it's a little bit harder to get people to want to do it and, logistics, stuff like that, and making sure that we are following the law.
Some of those chocolates, some of those sweets, set up a little platter.
Yeah, dude. And that was my idea. I wanted to give them balms, edibles, low dosage stuff.
A different kind of variety of all the different products.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to just throw joints and fucking pipes in there. I wanted to give them an all-around experience that this is what the industry is coming out with.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the industry to show off. I don't want them to just be like, yo, check out this 70% rosin, bro. The legislators aren't going to get that.
Give them the gift basket.
Yeah, give them the gift basket. Give them some pretzels. Some gummies, a couple drinks, some salve.
Discounts for some pizza later.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. There you go. Do you guys have a pizza joint over there? I just thought of that right now.
We have like the Pilot that sells pizza, and we have
that's not the same.
What is it, like the Hunt Brothers Pizza? No.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, it's really
gas
good.
Station
It's the best gas station pizza you'll ever eat.
No shit.
Yeah.
I'll have to try it or something like that. That's funny. I just thought, I was like, what if Jolly even has a pizza spot?
Apparently not. Apparently it's the gas station.
So I'll update you guys on this real quick. So right now, what I'm going to update you on is something, very specific. So there's a budget bill going through Congress right now, the House and the Senate. And what's going on with this is, in some language inside of this bill, I'm trying to word this right, is going to prohibit the federal government from using funds to reschedule or even deschedule cannabis. Yeah, I know. And it was brought up in one of the committees, in I think the Senate side or the House side, one of the two, because the bill is going on both sides. And as you guys know, and this is true for New Mexico too, if you have mirroring bills and they go through the legislature, at the end they usually end up merging them, but they have to mirror exactly. And if they differ, then you have to go and do through another process essentially to finally get them remediated to match up. And it looks like that's what's going to happen with this. And so on the House side and the Senate side, it only has one committee, and it makes sense because if it's going to be like a budget thing, they're going to have less committees for it anyway, because budgets are important. And this is unfortunate because it's kind of going backwards. And I don't know why they decided to do this. I don't know, but I can only guess, and my guess is that they want to align more with what the law says. They want to, protect kids, quote unquote, and all this other stuff. But, why are we going that route when there's so many states that have legal cannabis, medical cannabis, and, HHS, last year, I don't know about this year, acknowledged that cannabis does have medical benefits. So I don't see the reason why they're doing this. And it's really fucking confusing, but I needed to update you all because this is important. And to be honest, I don't know if this language is going to get taken out on the floor, because on the Senate side, it passed its committee. And so it's going to be heard on the Senate floor. On the House side, I think it still has to go through the House committee and then go to the House floor. But I kind of feel this might stick. And if that's the case, it's going to set us back a little bit. However, what this doesn't do is it doesn't allow the DOJ to use their funds to go after us still. So that's one good thing that stayed, is that the fact that they kept that language in there. So I don't know. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts so far on this?
I think we've got time. I don't think much is going to happen. I think it's going to be another one of those things where, like Texas, they're going to take as long as they want, as long as they can, because, okay, legalizing and regulating cannabis isn't just the conversation. It's just the beginning of the conversation. What do we do with all of the people in all of our private prison systems that are convicted for this cannabis? Well, that's part of the conversation too, if we legalize. What do we do about the budget cuts that we're going to face with all of the lack of labor, free labor that we get from all of these cannabis convictees? Like, it's just part of a bigger whole. And I think it's going to take a lot more time for them to figure all of that out. And maybe they're just doing that to keep us busy and to let us hope that they're going to reschedule like they have been. But realistically, I just don't see it happening much soon because no one else has talked about the other parts of the conversations.
That's a very good point, you know, because, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's being left out when we do finally reach that point, whatever it may be. You know, like there's those small little nuances. And to be honest, the federal government has no clue how to go about this either. They're still figuring it out. And like last year, they clarified several times and several different things. No, this is actually what this means. We're actually not sure what this means, and we're still trying to figure it out, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I kind of feel that this passing isn't really going to change much for us and, you know, what we do in the state side, whatever. It might extend a little bit longer on the federal side, but all it's going to take is, you know, Congress introducing a descheduling bill, it passing and getting signed. You know, that's all they have to do. It's just convincing Congress to do that is the hard part.
Yeah.
Because there's still so many anti-cannabis representatives in our Congress. Be it left or right, you know, like, yes, we know more commonly the Democrats support cannabis and the Republicans don't. However, the common, like, Republican voter is very pro-cannabis. You know, it's just the people that they elect tend to not be, which is the unfortunate part for whatever reason, the reason why they voted for it and it wasn't cannabis.
You mean a majority of the people would like it to be descheduled and our representatives aren't following what the people think they should do?
It's crazy, right?
I know.
50% of America is almost 70% of America.
That's almost like a term limits.
It's weird, right?
Weird,
yeah,
very weird.
Crazy.
You know, I was just taking a look at trying to see some of the legislation that was going up, and first hit I got was actually a bunch of bills from 20 and 21 that they had like several rescheduling or descheduling bills up in there, and they got up to a certain point and then just kind of died right there.
One of them actually passed the House,
yeah,
the full House, and then the Senate is where bills die usually. You know, even that's even true on a state level. You know, like even here in New Mexico, especially. Yeah, like it passed the House, everyone was excited, and then I was like, oh great, it's going to the Senate. It's not going to do anything because we had Mitch McConnell in there, and you know, and he was just not wanting to do much of, you know, anything when it came from stuff like that. So
I mean,
unfortunately, yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, they're from a different world. If you think about it, it's going to take either a lot of them dying or a lot of them finally getting out of there.
Well, we're getting really close on that first one, so.
Yeah, we're getting super close.
I mean, we got some really old people in Congress, and eventually they will age out. I didn't do anything bad. I didn't want to mention anything like that, but I mean, that what I'm saying is we actually have a lot of people that are leaving office.
Some are dying in office.
Yeah. I mean, half of them should have been retired 20 years ago, and half of them probably don't even have driver's licenses anymore. They probably have to get an annual vision check.
Come on, some of these people haven't driven in years and decades.
No, you're right. You know, like these people are they're essentially, and I've heard this joke online actually. Someone said our Congress is the biggest old people's home in the world, and I said, and like the most expensive.
Term limits.
It is
helps so much. Just that would save everyone so many issues if we just did term limits.
Oh my God, we need term limits so bad. There's no reason that anybody should be in any position for 20, 10, you know, whatever amount of, like 8 years tops, buddy.
Don't get me started on term limits. We will be here for another hour.
Dude, that's a lot of insider trading. Like, get out and let someone else do it. Like,
the Pelosi index.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like we need an overhaul on a lot of sides of our government. You know, not just Congress and everything, but I think term limits is a start, you know, of getting where we need to be with that, because you're not going to get progressive legislation from people who aren't progressive anymore. I saw this meme where it's like, Mr. Turtle, you're 200 years old. How do you feel? I'm very racist. It's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what I feel our Congress is filled of. There's a bunch of old racist turtles.
Very set in their ways.
He does look like a turtle.
He does look like a turtle. You know, I don't think it has anything to do with getting anybody progressive. It's just getting new blood in there, getting the new people in there. A lot of the younger people that realize what's going on or anything else like that. Because, you've had people that have been in Congress since, you know, in the 60s.
Yeah, since before women could vote. Yeah. You know, like, and that's weird to even say that, you know, they've been there that long. Don't get me wrong. Yes, it's great to know your history and what happened before, but some of these people are out of touch,
Completely.
you know, like just completely out of touch. And that happens after being in that position for so long. You know, it's a natural thing. And the natural process is to replenish, you know, get younger blood in there and get people who are closer to the issue, you know, and then allow them to do their thing. And then after they're done, you get someone else in and, you know, boom, boom, boom.
Eventually that'll happen. If you look at the progress that cannabis has had for the past 20 years, I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's happened, and it's getting greater and bigger every year. State by state, it kind of just knocking down those dominoes, not quickly, but slowly. Yeah. But state by state, it's getting there. And I think it's just a matter of time before the federal government, you know, we get enough new blood in there that it's eventually going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, it's going to be up to you guys too, as the voters. You know, please vote. It's very important. You know, even if you don't want to vote, go out and be the representative. I think 70% of local elections go unattended. Like no one is against you. Like you win by default. So if you go in, you can have a chance of winning because that person's only winning because there's no one against them. And so like you have a high chance of winning at that point. Like a Waxy, you know, rest his soul, Waxy Brown proved that to us when he won in Missouri. He ran on a pro-cannabis platform and won city council. You know, so it's possible to do, and we can do that, and it's happening all the time.
We've got a mayor in Grants.
Yeah, mayor in Grants, pro-cannabis. You know, the friendliest cannabis mayor in the nation. So, you know, it's doable, and all of us watching, you know, we need to start getting more involved and stuff like that. So, that's pretty much all I had for that, though. But you know, do you guys have anything else before we end the show today?
I don't.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, did she hear me? Awesome. Well, Kaytlinne, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great conversation. I had fun, you know, just updating with you guys. It's always fun, you know, conversing with you guys. You know, it's always a breath of fresh air because you guys are just so in tune of what's going on versus other people that are just a little delirious on certain things. So it's great to hear that you guys are doing great. Keep on pounding over there. You know, you guys are running and gunning and doing great things. And I look forward to, you know, next year's update and everything what's going on. And maybe you guys will be, you know, getting that grow going, and I get to try your flower. So is there anything that you want to say before we sign off?
No, just thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Of course, you know, anytime. And, you know, I'll be happy to see you guys in person, and, you know, if we run into each other again. And, you know, I look forward to, you know, checking out Jaws sometime. So thank you so much. And, you know, I love the hair again, by the way. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Gino, you got anything?
Oh, you don't like my hair?
Yeah, you better have any.
I'm wearing a hat. I'm wearing a hat.
You should try it, Gino. I think this will look good on you.
It'll look good on me? We'll see.
Yeah.
The disembodied voice will check it out.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we'll have to have like him as like a little like animated thing in here or something like that.
I'll bring my Funko Pop in and you can put it.
There we go. We'll have that as it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for showing this week. Kaytlinne, again, thank you. Gino, thanks for production and everything. And of course, Adam's media group for, you know, putting on the #Grassy Logic show. Guys, thank you again for watching this week. I'll keep you guys updated for what's going on continually. Like I said, only a few weeks left of this season, and then we'll take a couple-month break, and we'll be back for season 4. So thank you guys again, and I'll be back next week with another episode of #Grassy Logic. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do to stay in the know. All right, shoots.